Today I'm going to share an amazing range of free crochet blanket patterns and ideas so that you can make your own spectacularly awesome and unique crochet blankets. These designs are going to range from beginner friendly and super simple to quite intricate and complicated, intermediate and more advanced patterns. And at the end I'm going to share my absolute top tip for using these free patterns to make something that is completely unique to you. I want to start with these 3D designs because they are slightly off the wall when it comes to blankets. Blankets that have this sort of layering or embellishment effect, but that's actually crocheted into the blanket, are so cool. I love these flowers for that. Although they look a little complicated, I would say that they are still on the more beginner friendly end. If you've done a couple of like granny squares, things like that before, they're actually not a bad one to dive into, and there are so many different ways you use them. Personally, I think they look the prettiest when they're combined with another kind of 3D design within the blanket, just like this 3D snowflake. Okay, you wouldn't think flowers and snowflakes, there's a slight juxtaposition issue there, right? But genuinely, this is one that I'm going to have a try with, and I think that if I theme them for Christmas, so have white snowflakes and then like poinsettia red for the flowers, that could look really cool. Basket weave has been a huge thing for me recently. I am currently making a basket weave blanket. It is one of the more time-consuming stitches. It's definitely more of an intermediate stitch, maybe leaning towards advanced depending on how you use it, but it comes out so beautifully, and it's one of those things that although it's a bit thinky at the beginning, once you get into it actually flows. It's fine. I love this. I love the Happy Place yarn for this one as well. The cotton blend. Just maybe avoid the highest cotton percentages because obviously it can feel a bit rough, but also it can be really heavy, and this is quite a dense stitch anyway. Next we've got ribbing in crochet. Now I know if you can knit as well, knitting ribbing is a lot quicker than crochet ribbing is for most of us. However, if like me you've tried to knit and you're actually basically useless at it, crochet ribbing's a really fun one, and you can make some really dense, warm but lovely and soft blankets using these different ribbing stitches. I didn't mention, but I will link all the free patterns for these down below, so if you see one that you like, just drop into that description box and there'll be a link to the pattern there for you. Next is the bean stitches, and I am such a big fan of these. You can get like little mini bean stitches and big bean stitches, both really pretty. If you want to, you can also combine the two of them in your blanket, which makes for a really fun and nice texture. Personally, I think probably this one is a bit too dense if you're making a baby blanket, but really lovely for like making a big Afghan or throw for your sofa, that kind of thing. I want to quickly shout out to the Bullion stitch. Now, those of you who have tried this before, you'll know that that actually uses a latch hook rather than the traditional crochet hook. Bit of a different one to make up, but if you want a really different finish and texture, a go with a latch hook is the way to do it. This definitely leaning more towards the intermediate / advanced. Using a new tool can be a bit of a hurdle for some people, but if you've used a latch hook before, dive straight in, you're going to be great. I love ripple stitches, and they are one of those things that's often labeled as beginners. To me, actually, I think that they can be a little bit more challenging to work with depending on which one you're using. By all means, give it a go. Follow my tips for advancing your crochet patterns video there if you're feeling a little bit unsure, but there are so many ways to make ripples and waves. These are my 4 favorite ripples and waves. You can do different size bands for the colors to make that a bit different, and of course you can make lovely borders for it as well. Now we've got to quickly mention classic granny squares. If you're here, you've probably made them. Even though it is one that is so well known and so used, it still makes for awesome blankets, and particularly what you can do is match it together and use it with the solid granny squares as well. So solid is just more of the sections are filled in with the same stitches, so exactly the same techniques, really different finish. And as I said, my favorite thing to do is actually to make different rounds, some solid, some classic, like you can see in this example that I'm working on at the moment. Another underrated classic is the circle granny square, and I love the variation that you get with these. However many rings you want to do, you can vary it by that. You can mix and match colours, you can change them as much as you want to. You can go for lovely muted tones or super bright ones like these. Such a variable way to make a blanket, but so beautiful. Personal favourite for me is when you make lots of them as granny squares and join them together, but you can just make a massive circle blanket if you prefer. And because that's done less often, could be a bit more different. And speaking of different, have you tried feather stitches yet? Again, we're looking at a bit of a more advanced stitch here, but it is such a lovely finish. It is so intricate. If you're wanting to make a blanket that you don't mind injecting a lot of time and quite a lot of yarn into, and you want to learn something that is new and going to give a very different finish to your standard crochet blanket, feather stitch is a great option for that. But so are shell stitches, and they are way less complicated than they look, and they make beautiful blankets. Now, personally, I would always make your infinitely increasing from a single shell stitch blanket using this. You can technically join them together, but you'd either need to fill in the gaps around the edge or join them at the points, which makes for a slightly less structurally sound blanket. So for me personally, shell, great way to make a blanket, but maybe consider just using the standard granny square pattern for that, just increasing from one square. V-stitches are another lovely way to make blankets, and they work up equally beautifully whether you use double or half double crochets or whether you work in rows or in rounds. So they give you lots and lots of options. Pretty simple to make in terms of stitches, but the finish looks so intricate for the effort that you put into it. It's got a big payout, I think, using a V-stitch to make your blanket. Speaking of a big payout, waffle stitches. I must admit to you that I have begun a waffle stitch blanket. I began it 5 years ago, and it's still about this big. I don't even want to show you, I'm that ashamed of myself. Waffle stitch is beautiful, but if you have a short attention span like me, or are easily distracted or frustrated, maybe skip waffle stitch. However, if you're a person who's laser focused and loves a long-term commitment project, you really can't get a lot more beautiful and a lot more satisfying in terms of how it feels. Then we've got these two, which are a proper like modern twist, which are the hearts and the stars. I really love these, and I also really like how their bold colours make them really stand out. But I think when I actually make this, however, I'm going to do it in tones of white, grey and black to sort of have this difference between the style of the pattern and then the finish of the colours, and I think that's going to be really beautiful. One of my absolute favourites when it comes to crochet blankets is this diagonal granny square. Biggest impact for me is when you have lots of them, but they also look nice as one huge diagonal granny square. The technique for doing the colour changes in the corner is way simpler than it looks, so the tutorial that I'll link below, that'll walk you through how to do that, but it is one of those that for a relatively simple difference, just doing those colour changes diagonally, has a huge impact, and I really like that. Then we've got one of my old favourites, which is the sun granny square. I absolutely love this one. I think that it looks best when you use sunny colours. So you've got your orangey yellows, your reds for the sun, and then your shades of blue for the sky around it. Really, really nice. I've made a big blanket with this a while back, which I was so pleased with. I will definitely do this again at some point. And again, it's relatively straightforward. If you're getting confident with crochet, it's one that's well worth a try. Block stitches have to be mentioned. It is slightly frustrating to work with because you've got the two different strands of yarn trying to tangle each other and get in each other's way, but there is no denying that the finish is absolutely stunning. I'm currently using block stitch to make a blanket for another friend's baby. There's a lot of babies going on at the moment, and I am doing the stripes through it in a single colour, so it's just a two-tone one, but it does look absolutely stunning in these multiple colours as well. And finally, the linen stitches. Linen stitch can be worked up again in rows or rounds, which makes it such a nice choice for a blanket. Very much lends itself towards those classic colours. Muted pastels as well, I think look really lovely with these, and you can mix them together with the different styles if you want to make something again that's really very much your own, but using something that's quite a classic stitch. And finally, my absolute top tip for making a blanket if you want to be unique is very simple. Mix these together. Choose different stitches, perhaps even ones that you think conventionally wouldn't necessarily merge terribly well in the same place. Have a go. Mix the different stitches and the different styles of granny squares, or combine having a granny squares, as the border around the edge and a traditional blanket in the middle. Mix it up just a little bit. As long as you keep your colours consistent through it or within a certain palette, it will still, I promise, look stunning, and it'll make something that it's highly unlikely that anyone else has ever seen before. But let me know, what's your favourite thing to do with crochet blankets? What's the best crochet blanket you've ever made, and what did I miss from the list? Let's have a chat in the comments section below, and I can't wait to see you there.